This is Regin's Travels podcast. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Regin's Travels podcast. Joining us today is Rowan Beard. He is Young Pioneer Tours' North Korea Tours Manager. His first visit to North Korea was back in 2012 and has been based in Asia for over 10 years with 100 plus visits to the DPRK. He used to reside in Dandong, the border town of China to North Korea, where he has found himself the perfect balance of Chinese and North Korean lifestyle. But due to the pandemic, he is currently stuck in Cambodia. Hi, Rowan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Regin. Hello, everyone. Hello, all listeners as well. Thanks for having me.
How's it going there in Phnom Penh?
If you can tell by the beads of sweat coming down my face, it's pretty warm today. But are you in Manila?
I'm in the southern part of the Philippines, Mindanao. I don't know if you
Mindanao,
know.
cool.
Yeah, it's like the southern part.
Yeah, just as warm, right? Probably, I would even say hotter than where I am now.
Probably it's about the same. Yeah, from compared to Cambodia, it's about the same.
Nah, you're looking cool though. You look slick. Your room's probably AC. That's why.
Yeah, it's really hot in here as well, so you have to turn on the AC. I first met you in 2000, and I think that was 2015, December. That was a New Year's Eve tour to North Korea to the DPRK, and I remember saw you. You know, you're one of the leaders of the Young Pioneer Tours, and I went with Choreo Tours, the other tour company, and I even saw you on the train. You know, at a restaurant car, and you've been in Asia since 2012, visited North Korea, and became the tour manager of Young Pioneer Tour. So, how did this all start? Like
Right.
your travel
Right.
career?
Well, I didn't realize we had briefly met before as well, but that's a pretty cool story to imagine if we ran into each other in a bar and you were like, "Hey, I met you on the train to Pyongyang." Like, "Oh yeah, cool. Hey, how you doing? Let me get you a beer." But yeah, no, I moved out of Australia and I went I went to Vietnam
Hmm.
in 2010, 2011, I think it was, and I spent a couple of years there. Uh, Teaching the president of Vietnam's family English. I managed to snag that job, which was pretty interesting and cool. I enjoyed it very much. And with their interest in politics, if you Google Vietnam relationships with, foreign countries, number two is North Korea. And that always baffled me. I'm always been like, wow, like really, that's cool. So I had a chance to ask the family. They gave me some input. So I had this idea of wanting to visit North Korea from there. But, North Korea is constantly in the headlines, especially since the early 2000s. So going through high school and stuff, reading, seeing the news and on the newspaper, remember newspapers, it just got me curious. So I first went as a tourist in 2012 with Young Pioneer Tours.
There you go.
And so I was just a simple tourist, and I got along really well with everyone who had worked at YPT, and I thought North Korea was fascinating and interesting, and I got given an opportunity to work there. So I took it. So I moved from Vietnam to China, and that was my experience. Yeah.
Wow, 2012. So during the time, it was already Kim Jong Un, right? When did Kim? What was the name of the dad? Kim Jong
Is
Il.
that Kim
Kim
Jong Il? That's
Kim
right.
Jong
Yeah.
Il, I think, died in 2009 or 2010, something like that.
2011. So
Oh,
he
11.
died in December 2011, and when I went in 2012 May, that was Kim Jong Un was already in charge, and so that was interesting for me because I got to talk to the North Koreans. I'm like, hey, what can you tell me about Kim Jong Un? And even they were like, we don't know. He's in charge. He's cool. And it's like, okay, rock and roll.
Weren't you scared to ask that question?
No, because you can read the room. Like if it's just be a good people person. If you ask a question and you can see it makes them feel uncomfortable, or if they have zero interest, and if you're pursuing something and they're like not giving you anything back, to stop. You know what I mean?
Right. It's just part of social skill as well. And I know you're good at that because you're a leader. You're a tour manager.
Try to be
that's,
good at it anyway.
that's why you're able to get the job. Yeah, but then okay, so you went to North Korea 2012. What made you so interested that you even changed careers? From being a teacher in Vietnam to being part of Young Pioneer Tours to always constantly go to North Korea.
Yeah, just to have a hands-on experience and to get a deeper understanding of a country that is so mysterious to the outside world, because there's so many things that happen in that country that don't come out of that country. It's either misunderstood or there's just mystery. Like even North Korea don't really know what goes on the inside as well. So me going in there so frequent, usually about once or twice a month for the past 8 years prior COVID, I was always able to learn something new, see something about this mysterious, unique country. Yeah,
Right.
very mysterious.
I remember going there in 2015, and that was just for 5 days. It's a very quick tour.
Right.
And what happened is, like what they have been saying, you go there with a lot of questions, but then
Mm.
you get there, and after going there, then you have more questions.
Yeah, you leave with more questions
You
than what you
leave
expect for sure.
with more questions. So that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like 5 days is never enough, and I have more questions. And a lot of people are asking me about North Korea. Obviously, they haven't been there. Not a lot of people have been there, and they ask me a lot of questions about North Korea. But a lot of them I cannot really answer because I myself I'm puzzled of what I saw and what I
mm.
experienced. So like what you're doing, constantly going there, I'm sure you have lots of answers now.
Sure, man. Did when you finished your tour, did you take the train out as well?
Yeah, I took the train. That's why I saw you there
Cool.
at a restaurant car. You were so
Oh, on the
talkative
train
and
out.
out of yeah because we flew
Ah,
right
right.
via Koryo, what is it, the Koryo
Air choreo.
Air Koryo. Coming back to Beijing, we took the
Yeah,
train.
yeah.
And yeah,
That's
I saw you at the restaurant car because obviously you're the tour manager and you're so talkative and social. You know everyone, and we were just eating quietly there. Like, oh, this is the guy from the other tour group. Yeah, so I took the train.
all right. Yeah, because the train out. So for anyone who is curious about North Korea, when you do, as you said, when you do go there and when you leave, you have more questions. And the train out is the best opportunity to find out all these last minute questions that have been sitting in your head during your 3 day, 5 day, 12 day, 28 day, whatever day tour you've decided to join. And it's always good to just be in the dining car, having a meal, enjoying a drink, and to go over these questions as a group. It definitely adds to the experience.
Exactly, mate. So that's exactly what happened. We were at the because we were at a soft sleeper. You have two options, right? Hard sleeper and soft sleeper. So we have our own compartment. So like what you've mentioned, after the tour, we were sharing our experiences, and we have lots of these questions. And I remember even one of my companions. He's from Vietnam. He's like 76 years old during the time,
Right.
and he was residing in Canada, but originally from Vietnam. And we were talking about North Korea and all that stuff, asking questions. And he even said, "Hey, can you just stop talking about this because I still want to see my wife. We are still in North Korea. We are still inside North Korea, so maybe we can talk about this once we cross the border, once we get to China." That's what he told us.
All
He was
right.
scared.
So he was being a bit paranoid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, actually, the train's one of my favorite parts of the tour. That's one thing I definitely don't get tired of, because it's that opportunity to be with other North Koreans without being, you're actually not monitored on the train. So you can actually rock up to a North Korean cabin, and if they welcome you, be like, "Hey, what do you do?" And have a
Oh,
very open discussion. And because it's on a train, whether the North Koreans are leaving or coming back into North Korea, they're pretty excited. So they're in talkative moods. So if you do catch a North Korean who does speak English, which is very, very possible and common, you can have some amazing conversations with them, and you can meet. For me, this is how the majority of times I meet my some new business contacts or just some new friends that can help you out when you face any hurdles. So yeah, no, it's the train is the place to to feel safe.
oh, I didn't know that. But what I noticed though is most of them, I don't know if they're North Korea, probably North Koreans and Chinese. Most of them are in the hard sleeper compartment part of the train, right?
Mm,
Usually for the soft sleeper part, those are the tourists.
That's where you'll find us white BTers. And I've been hit up actually by a couple of Filipinos who have been with me to North Korea who heard about this podcast. So a shout out to them, to Freya and to a couple of other mates. But anyway, so yeah, we're in the hard sleeper. That's I know it sounds horrible, but it's just a second class sleeper, and it's just easy to mingle. It's open. Anyone who wants to upgrade to the soft sleeper, you can do so, but it's a bit more quiet, and it's very chilled and very private. So you can't really open the door to a first class cabin and be like, "Hi guys," it's private. That's people. They close the door, they lock the doors. But in the hard sleeper, it's open. We're all there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned some Filipino friends as well. When they know that you're going to be on the podcast, they said regards to you, Arvin. You know Arvin Soriano. He like commented on one of my posts. Is maybe went on a tour with you, but he said, "Oh, Rowan is going to be on the podcast. Send my regards." His name is Arvin Soriano. Shout out to Arvin as well.
I think that's Moj. I think actually,
Moja.
you know what?
His nickname
Moja.
is Moja. His nickname is Moja, but his real name is
Even more
Arvin.
interesting, he hasn't been to North Korea, but he lives in Dandong, where I was based.
Oh,
So
really?
there's two Filipinos that live on the border of the Chinese border town to North Korea. They're both teachers, I'm pretty sure. And so that's how I know him. But he's too chicken shit to go to North Korea. Imagine living in a city that faces
you're
a
already
country,
there. Yeah,
and you're too scared to go. Like all you have to do is cross the river,
right.
go for a day. It's
Oh,
easy.
man. He should have gone. But then Dandong is it Liaoning? What province is Dandong again? Is it
That's right. It's in
Liaoning?
Liaoning province. Yep.
Liaoning, yeah. Oh, wow. And one of the best experiences of my North Korean journey was taking the train. You can really see the contrast between the two countries when you cross the border between, is it called Sinuju? The
That's
border
right.
town of
Yeah. That's
Sinuju
right.
going to Dandong, like the lights,
Yeah.
because that was already almost evening, actually, almost evening. And it was so dark at North Korea, but once we crossed the border to China, just neon lights everywhere. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
you can really see the contrast. To think that
30,
geographically
40
speaking,
story buildings on
yeah,
the Chinese side, and just like the Sinuiju side being fairly flat and dark. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Oh, and I love watching the tourists when they look at the contrast and when they're coming back into China, and then their phones go bing, and they go, "Oh, internet!"
oh wow, really? So you can have
Yeah.
a signal once you cross the Chinese border.
That's right. There's like a majority of people get it like halfway on the bridge, or some people
Oh,
might get it in Sinuiju. But it's really funny when people who haven't had internet for 5 days and how they're like, "Oh man, need to check my Instagram." The withdrawal symptoms, and it's just funny. I enjoy it. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing, like some people I know don't want to go to North Korea because they say that there's no internet there. But for me, that's one of the reasons why I went there is kind of like having an internet detox and having a different experience because
For sure.
you always have internet at your home. So why
Right.
would be a problem? Just a few days, but some people just
Yeah.
cannot live without the internet. And like, how, I don't
Like
want to go there. There's no
imagine
internet.
imagine sitting at a table with a bunch of people you met like a day ago and having a conversation and
Right.
nobody looking at their phone. It's cool.
It's cool, man. Like for 5 days, I wasn't able to check my email. I think that's one of the interesting parts of visiting North Korea.
Right. But there is internet there. If you work in North Korea, you can have access to the internet there. Or if you're, even tourists can, if you're doing a long-term stay. The only problem is that it's just really expensive. It's horrendously expensive. It's $50 for about 80 megabytes.
Oh man.
So I'll let that sit with you guys. So if the internet is so important for you, and 80 megabytes is nothing these days. You open up Facebook, and I think that's already like 18 megs from the news feed of, it's heavy. It's,
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. But what I know before was at the hotel, the Yanggakdo Hotel, there's like a kind of like a booth where if you want to send email, you can just access the computer, but then you have to
yeah,
pay. But then that is just
yeah,
for email, like exclusively for email purposes, not really like
right,
social
yeah,
media.
and I don't recommend doing that because usually that email that's sent out to whoever you're sending it to, it'll end up in the trash because it's marked as a suspicious email address because it's a code-star.dprk.org something address, and yeah, it's suspicious. So unless you got people constantly checking the spam filters, nobody does. Just pick up the phone. Bit more expensive, but a 1 minute call would be totally worth it. Like, hey, I'm in North Korea, I gotta go. Anyway, see ya. Bye.
Or send postcards. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's cool too. That's cool. That maybe don't if it's urgent, don't rely on the postcards. It's going to take about a month, 2, 3 to reach home.
Yeah, and I really didn't expect it to arrive just because it's North Korea, but surprisingly, it did arrive.
Yeah. It does arrive. It even arrives in the States. So there's only one place you can't send it to, one country you can't send it to, and
South
it's
Korea.
hey, there we go.
So, how was your experience during your first visit to North Korea? How was it? Your first reaction? Did
Oh
it did,
man,
did it meet your expectation?
just like you and anyone else who has been to North Korea, you have this expectation of like, I'm going to do this tour and I'm only allowed to see this and do this, and these people are going to be like robots. It's going to be like an insane experience. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. But that was definitely my expectation. And so when I went there during May Day, which is one of the biggest holidays of the year. That's not political as well, and it's just gone from winter to spring, so the weather's good. People are outside,
Mhm.
and it was just nuts, man. Everyone was out, barbecues in like parks, and the social interactions I had with people, like it was people weren't as shy as I thought they would be, being like a conservative Korean culture, but a lot of them were like able to approach and talk and just have fun. And there was that language barrier at first, but it was that effort of being like, hey, thanks for coming to my country, and it's like, cool, thanks for having me, kind of thing. It was just it blew my expectations. And but again, left me with more questions, and having the chance to learn more about it, yeah, I took it.
Yeah, for me, I really expected to have an exotic experience, like a really different, total different experience because it's North Korea. It's secluded. It's kind of like a hermit kingdom. So when I got there, I have these expectations. Well, it was quite different compared to other countries, but at the same
Right.
time, it's still a lot of similarities. Buildings are there, people living their lives. It's not like what we hear on the news. But then
Mm.
when I was there, I was like, it's pretty much a normal country to me. Maybe it's different in some ways, but to be honest, like the people that I've met, because we had a chance to also interact with the locals, at the metro and during one of the New Year's parties. Like it is more normal to me compared to what I expected, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's the expectation that I enjoy. That blows tourist expectations. It definitely makes my job easier for sure. But people who have been to North Korea leave North Korea and they're like, "Wow, I wasn't it. That was I could never have expected that to happen, and it's a good experience." You know what I mean? It's good to have an insight to a country that most of the time we read the criticizing news about government decisions, the
Right.
diplomatic relationships between North Korea, South Korea, Japan, the US, China, Russia. But as you just said, like people are people, and the people in North Korea are very much people. They have their opinions, they have their own sense of humor, they have their own ambitions in life, whether they want to get married, have a successful job,
For
study
sure.
hard,
Yeah.
be healthy,
Yeah.
make money, support the family. It's like all those things are relatable. And the conversations I've had with North Koreans of like, I could completely forget their nationality and know that I'm talking to a guy who's my age, and we're facing the exact same issues in life right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe because I've read a lot of, maybe you can even say it's propaganda. Like I've read articles about the North Koreans just being so secluded. So I imagine they don't know anything about the outside world. I imagine them to be. It even said there some of them are just eating grass and bark of trees. They have nothing to eat, and all those exotic stories. So maybe those happened maybe in the past during the famine probably, and I still have
Right.
that expectation. So when I got there, especially like what I mentioned during the New Year's Eve party, we were on the boat. Maybe you were there as well, a young pioneer group, because we were on the boat during a New Year party during that time, and we were able to interact with the locals. These are pretty much normal people. Like they sing songs. They have this, like what you said, they have these plans in life as well. So yeah, my expectation is kind of like not really met in terms of being having an exotic experience.
Right. Yeah. And I think one thing that everyone thinks too much about North Korea, it's like they think North Koreans think that North Korea is the best country, and it's like they're aware that they're a developing nation. They got the issues that other developing nations have when it comes to like bad infrastructure or outdated infrastructure, running water, constant electricity, that kind of thing. So they're very aware of the status of their country. And as you said, like a lot of them aren't totally aware of what happens on the outside. A lot of them are. And one of the good things I like about North Koreans are when they aren't so much aware of it, they're good listeners, and they're very open to hear like, oh, what's going on the inside? Because the majority of things they hear could be outdated, and you can be like, this is how it is. The one thing that you can have trouble to explain for them to fully grasp is the internet and how the internet is used. Like for me to explain how we are doing this now, having this Zoom conference on the internet, and this is the benefits, this is connecting people. For them, a lot of them are like, oh, the internet's bad. They just write bad things about us. And it's like, no, guys. And I have ways of explaining it to them so they understand. But a lot of them jump to the whole, no, the internet is bad and we don't want it. And it's like, well, come to China and I'll show you how it's used, and you're going to miss it when you go back to North Korea. I tell you, I've seen it many times.
Oh wow, that's so interesting. Like they still don't have the concept of the internet. That's interesting. It reminded me of when I was still in elementary. During that time, the internet was still pretty new, and I read about it on Reader's Digest magazine, and I was like, it's so hard for me to grasp the concept. Like, how did they talk to each other? How they send it? Like about I was reading about email, so probably that's what that is they're feeling now, and to think we're already on a 21st century.
Well, smartphones in North Korea are a thing, and they develop their own smartphones, and they run Android-based operating systems on it, and they're pretty good. They're expensive, but they don't have the capability to connect to the internet. They connect to like a local intranet, like a 3G internal network for the North Koreans. But what the North Koreans are really into is mobile games, and these North Korean developers have taken simple games like those games that took off on the iPod and iPhone years and years ago, like Doodle Jump and Angry Birds. They've taken this game, ripped out the external credits and whatever because they've had access to the source, and just North Koreanified it, where it's like the same game, but you don't have like the company names or anything. It's just like made in North Korea. And so North Koreans are playing this on their phone constantly. My guides, if they have to wait for 5 minutes, they'll whip out their phone, play a game. When you said on the metro before, when you took the metro, it was an interesting experience for you because you get to mingle with the locals on the train, and you'll see students playing games on the phone. And so I'll tell them, hey, like, how do you get these games on your phone? And they have an app store, but it's a physical app store. So they have to go to a shop.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And they give it to the shopkeeper, and they're like, "Here, here's some money. I want." And there's all these posters around the shop, like A4 size posters of games that are advertising themselves, and they'll be like, "I want that." They give it to the shopkeeper, plug it into a PC, copy it over, and that's their app store. So me being like, imagine having the internet where you could just not go to the store and just be at home and download it, and then the North Koreans are like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool."
That's interesting.
You see, the internet's not so bad. It's helpful. Anyway.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because when I was there in 2015, I didn't see anyone playing games on the subway or on the metro. Maybe it's a thing like recently, because during the time the only ones who have smartphones are our guides, and I was a bit surprised when I saw them using smartphones, even because like what I've read, they don't have phones, they don't have access to phones, to communication, and maybe I imagine just like maybe just dumb phone or like Nokia, those kinds of phones, but they have actually smartphones. When I was there, the guys, I was a bit surprised as well. But I didn't know it was just intranet.
I call them smart dumb phones because they are smartphones, but a smartphone is completely useless without the internet. You know what I mean? So they love the photo, just taking photos and the photo editing apps these days. But yeah, you're right though. In 2015, the amount of smartphone owners were nowhere compared to what it was when I was last there in 2020, just before COVID. And it was very common to see more budget type smartphones, just kind of like how it is in the outside world. A majority of Chinese phones are now taking over the market because they're cheap and still perform just as well as the higher end models. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's it. And so you mentioned the 2015 New Year's as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Good New Year's.
Do you remember that one? You've been to a lot of tours, obviously, so maybe you don't remember, but like That was a New Year's Eve tour. They call it also YPT call it New Year's Eve tour, kind of similar to choreo tours. And
Right.
we went on a boat for the celebration. That was crazy. Like of all my New Year Eve's celebration experiences, that was my first time to do it on a boat, like on a yacht, on a kind of luxurious boat, and I did it
Right.
in North
Yeah.
Korea.
The Dandong boat. Yeah, that's a good option. We I think for that year, I think for the majority of years, we go into the Kim Il Sung Square with all the people, and we just surround ourselves with a bunch of North Koreans with, you know, locals are drinking, we're drinking, so it's like a Happy New Year. And now they do the whole man. New Year's has changed over the years. Like
Hmm.
now they do like a massive performance. Like they have a huge stage in the center of Kim Il Sung Square, and they'll have the Moranbong bands.
Oh wow, Modern Bong.
The all military female military band. So
Yeah.
they're doing a live performance, and there's like lasers
Oh
and
man.
fireworks,
So
and
you've seen them?
you don't want to be on a boat anymore. You want to be in the action, not out of the action.
Oh yeah, for sure. You've seen them in person, the Modern Bong
Yeah,
band.
I was there in 2018 to 2019 New Year's, but I took the 2019 to 2020 New Year's off.
Hmm.
But my guys who went there, I saw the video footage and it looked nuts. Like every year it gets better. And actually, we've taken tourists who have only been to North Korea during New Year's, and we've had a few returners come back being like, I can't top New Year's in North Korea. Like there's just no other place. They will just come back and just do it again because it's a really unique, awesome experience, especially the money you pay for the tour. It's like you can't spend that much money anywhere else in the world with at least times it by at least three or four or five. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's a rocking way to start the new year for sure.
Oh yeah, and especially Modern Bong band. They're beautiful, man. The ladies are beautiful, and that's like the K-pop version of North Korea.
It is, yeah. They came up with like two tunes. Oh no, yeah, they've done a few recent tunes, but there's I think they're not the hot ones any. I mean, hot as in like top 10 hot. There's like a new sort of band that's come out last year. Nick, my fellow tour guide mate, he's crazy about Moranbong. For anyone who doesn't know about it, go to Google, type in Moranbong band. We're at the top, Young Pioneer Tours, and it's a complete guide to the Moranbong. Like all the musicians who have been in it before, every single performance with YouTube videos, it's nuts. So knock yourself out.
The thing with this band is okay, they're beautiful, they're pretty, but at the same time they're so talented. You know, they're not just singing but playing instruments at the same time.
Yeah. There was a kindergarten in Pyongyang. Yeah, Taedongmun, Taedongmun
Hmm.
kindergarten, and it's a kindergarten that focuses on musical talents of children when they're young. And so, yeah, there's some of the Moranbong musicians went to that kindergarten when they were young. And so when you enter this kindergarten, you can see like big photos of other musicians in the wall, and the kindergarten is very proud. Like, hey, yeah, they came here, and our teachers taught them, and they're in the Moranbong. So this is where they started. So it's kind of cool to have like that kind of insight, you know.
That's the thing with North Korea. I noticed, like, because I opened the TV at the hotel, the Yanggakdo
Mm,
hotel, and I saw
right.
some programs where they have like children's shows. Because normally when you say children's show, it's more like, for kids. Maybe they're just singing like kiddie songs. But these kids in North Korea, it's a children's program, but they're performing like the performance is at level with adults, like dancing or
Mm.
playing instruments. Like, whoa, these kids are amazing. What kind of training do they do with these kids here in North Korea? It's on a
Yeah,
different level.
it's on a different level, and it's yeah, those kids are like spot on. But it's kind of funny as well because I got a South Korean girlfriend, and she's like flicks through social media of like other kids doing similar performances in South Korea or
Uh-huh.
even in Japan, and it's like that level of competition. And I just thought to myself like how imagine having like these kids battle it out for like these certain performances. But I think the North Korean kids would kick some butt for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely on a different level. So a lot of my friends, of course, they also want to go to North Korea, but a lot of my friends as well don't want to go to North Korea because of a lot of common myths. So what do you think are, let's say, what are the most common myths that you've encountered with regards to North Korea?
The first one, right up the top, you can't go to North Korea. What are you talking about? You just can't go there. That's the That's the first one that I hear all the time, and it's no, you can go. It's easy to go. The visa is a hell of a lot easier than what you think it is, and you went through the process as well. You just send your passport scan in, and boom, you rock up to Beijing or Dandong, and there's your tourist visa. Happy days. The Chinese visa, I think, would have been more complicated for you. Is that right?
No, no, it's not. It's still pretty easy.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Well, that's good. Well, if,
Yeah.
depending on your nationality, I've dealt with a few Filipinos who face some issues getting the double intro, but we always help with that. But that's the first myth. Second myth, you can't take photos or videos. So if you do go to North Korea, like, it's like, can I take a picture of this? Like, yeah, it's okay. You can take pictures of anything. The only three that are like the no-nos is one, military, which is pretty common in most countries around the world. Two, construction, because North Koreans are obsessed with things looking nice and formal and presentable. So an unfinished building is like just not pretty for the North Koreans. And also the construction workers are military. So it goes back to number two. And number three is checkpoints. So when you go down to the DMZ, there's some military installations on the way down there. You're getting closer to the most fortified border in the world. And yeah, no pictures of military checkpoints. That's it.
Right. And there's also a misconception that you can take photos of people or the locals of North Korea, but then one of our tour guides told us that of course you can take pictures of them. It's not really illegal, but at the same time, it's unethical. Imagine like you pointing your camera at these people. You don't do it in other countries as well. Like you don't go to the US and just point your camera at a random local American. Well,
Right, right, right.
why would you do it in North Korea? So it's like an ethical issue because some people think, "Oh, I have to go to North Korea and just point my camera at these North Koreans." Of course, it's not a zoo, you know.
At our pre-tour meeting, we bring this up. We say, guys, use your common sense when, act like you are in any other country in the world for the reasons you just said. But we have had a few tourists who get carried away, and there'll be like an old grumpy man, walking down the street, and someone would just get up with a massive camera with a long lens, and the old guy could be like, "Don't take my picture." And it's like, yeah, man, don't take his picture. Does it look like he wants his picture taken? Like, common sense. How it is, but it's very easy to take pictures of North Koreans in North Korea. They're very curious about us, and all it takes is a wave and a hello. A lot of North Koreans don't know English, but majority of nationals around the world know hello, and a lot of them will be like, "Hi, hello," and it's like, it's fine, it's cool.
Right. So in general, you can even take pictures of the military, but if you're at the DMZ, you can even take a photo with a general, like the general of the North Korean army, because it's
Not the
okay to.
general. I'm pretty sure the general will just be having a cigar at home, not on the front lines. But
Is,
yeah,
isn't
there
it
is
a,
like,
isn't it a general? Like I saw like some stars here on his shoulder. I don't know if this is general or not, but like probably a high
you'd
ranking
you'd have
officer.
you'd have like the highest I've met is a staff lieutenant, but like the equivalent anyway. But a lot of the ones who handle the tourists on the border of the DMZ, they're usually just like on a sergeant sort of rank. They're just very good with handling tourists and very friendly, very welcoming. And it's a weird one because a lot of people would expect them not to be, but
Hmm.
they are. And so the rules are a lot less relaxed. So a
Right.
lot more relaxed in North Korea compared to when you visit from the South Korean side.
Oh
Have you
wow.
been to the DMZ on the South Korean side?
No, no, not yet. Just.
It's for anyone who has been. There's a couple of regulations like no pointing, no waving, no shouting, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Certain clothing you'd have to wear, following strict instructions from the military guide. But on the North Korea side, it's not so much. It's you can do all that. And, you can have a bit of a laugh. You can ask questions. You can do the whole shaking the hands, photo pose with your with the local military officer who's helping you show you around. Yeah.
Right. That's why my friends were surprised when I posted it on social media that I have a photo with that officer, and I was like, "Whoa, you're able to do it!" And I heard even the negotiating table. Like if you're at the North Korean side, you can sit at the table, but if you're from the South Korean side, that you cannot really go to that table, something like that. So, yeah, it's a bit
Definitely.
more lax at the North Korean
Right.
side.
Yeah, sure is, man. I actually the last time I went to North Korea was early January 2020, and it was just before COVID kicked off. And yeah, there you go. You can get that photo taken at the DMZ. They're
Oh
supposed to do
man.
that. One of my last photos I had taken in North Korea. Sad. You'll be back.
Yeah, and I heard like they were the first one to restrict tourists because of the pandemic, and probably they will be the last one to open up for tourists as well.
I think that's very much the case. They were definitely the first country to close the borders, and they will definitely be one of the last to reopen. So I'm hoping they're able to get some vaccines rolled out there to the people, because the medical system in North Korea is not great, and you do not want to be sick in North Korea, especially with all the pretty harsh sanctions preventing a lot of specific type of medicines and medical equipment
Yeah.
coming to the country. So
Oh yeah.
it's tough on the people. So I hope they're able to roll out these vaccines through support for Russia, China, South Korea, COVAX. There's whatever means possible, and hopefully, all the friends and good people I know there are well and safe. And I won't be able
Mm.
to know that until you go inside.
So you always go there, been there 100 plus times. So how was your relationship? How is your relationship with the locals right now? Were you able to develop like a deep friendship with these locals already?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just like anywhere else in the world, like if you want to do business as a foreigner in a foreign country, you need trust, and you need solid friendships, and that's developed over the years since I've worked there. It's been a very unique, special, frustrating sort of like just like any other business relationship you would have in any other country. But I do miss the people there. I have really good friends there that I've worked there for even 8 years as my length of time there. And unfortunately, North Korea is going back to the whole internet thing, and the Hermit Kingdom, they're a closed off nation. So if anyone is in North Korea, you can't just send them a WhatsApp message being like, "Yo, dude, you okay? How's everything?" It's just one of the things. I'm gonna have to wait to get back there and find out any updates, see if there's any guides who have retired from working, or if anyone's had any babies, or if anyone's grandparents have passed away, that kind of stuff.
Oh wow. But can you send them snail mail though or postcard?
Nope, nothing goes
Really?
in.
Oh wow.
So yeah, you can make a call. I could call the office,
Okay.
but it's I'm having issues calling them from Cambodia. It's not as direct. But I've got some North Korean friends who are outside of North Korea right now, and they work in the
Hmm.
tourism industry, and they're just like they're just outside. They're waiting. They haven't got much to do. But I'm in contact with them, and a lot of them are bored and reading the COVID news around the world, being like, "Oh, it's going to be a long time before we open." Yep.
Right.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I remember the name of my guide when I was there. Her name is Pak. Do you know Pak?
The thing about Korean names is that Puck is the second most common Korean family name. First one being Kim, then you got Lee. So that's very common. People be like, "Oh man, Mr. Kim and Miss Lee, please tell them I say hello. I love them so much." I'm like, "What's the first name though?" There's a couple of Pucks. There's a couple of Kims, Lees, Chairs,
Yeah.
Songs. Yeah. If you have a photo, let me know, because Korea Tours work with the same travel company we do,
Right.
and that's the Korean International Travel Company. So they have a huge English department team, and we've all worked with each other. We
Mm.
have, I have separate managers that work directly with us, and it's kind of funny because it's the same company, but they're very much there's like this inter competition with each other, even though because they're dealing with two outside foreign agencies who are also in competition with each other. And yeah, it's funny to see like the internal, like your colleague like having arguments with your colleagues, and it's just funny like between Choreo and us, we're like,
Oh wow.
it's a small industry, so we get along very fine because there's not many other people who constantly go in there as much as us. But it's just
Yeah.
funny to see the North Koreans kind of like at each other. It's funny.
One of the biggest concerns of people with regards to going to North Korea is the safety. So in my opinion, it's one of the safest countries to visit, but people just don't understand this. Like they're so scared of
Mm.
North Korea. I remember one of my colleagues' mom visited China when I was there, and that was the time when I was going to North Korea for the tour, and she was so worried. She was so worried for me, and then when I returned, she was so happy because I made it back safely. But then when I was there, for me, I felt really safe, especially with the in terms of the statistics of things that's happening, like crime, like normally happening when you travel. And we would even sometimes joke with my friends, with my roommate during the tour, that, oh, North Korea is not safe because during the time it was winter, so it was a bit slippery. So sometimes you will slip, and then maybe you'll get knocked out. So, oh yeah, it's true. North Korea is not safe because the roads are slippery, something like that. So we're just joking about it. But the
Right.
point is, it's like one of the safest countries I've visited. So I think it's one of the biggest myths, and people are scared about it because of safety issues. So what can you say about that? Is their fear legit?
Working through the biggest myths of North Korea, number three would definitely be people's personal safety. And you're the first podcaster I've talked to who's actually been to North Korea. So we're speaking on levels where you get it, you've experienced it, you understand it. When I speak to people who haven't been, it's a you have to approach it from a different level. And it's really funny to hear you say it's not safety because you can slip on the road and fall and hurt yourself. Like that's I haven't heard anyone say that about North Korea. Like, oh, it's dangerous. You'll slip on the road and hurt your bum. Like that's for me. That's it's funny because everyone thinks like, oh, you have to watch what you say and like the rooms are bugged and the guides are listening to you and they're gonna think you're a spy and you're going to end up in jail. And the truth is no, your rooms aren't bugged. The guides aren't listening to you. But North Korea is a country where it has people running the country in a system that holds the country together that the people highly respect. And this culture exists in other cultures around Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, where I am now. There's a king. There's the list could go on. So it's just one of those places where most Westerners are like, oh, like I can say bad stuff about my politician leader. I'm like, oh, you can because you're from a democratic country, but go to Belarus and say something bad about Lukashenko and good luck. You know what I mean? There's just these. That's what we love about traveling because every country is different. But North Korea is a country where when you're in there, we do ask our tourists like, listen, if you have any questions or anything you might feel is negative that might insult the North Koreans, that's why we have Western guides. Our YPT guides are with you, so you can ask them and they can answer. Because the North Koreans are like, they're very into their leaders, just like a religious person being very into their religion. They're questioning someone's religion can be confrontational. It can be, to them, it can be rude and it can upset people. It can cause, if it's asked in the incorrect way, which is why I tell people when you do go to North Korea, get a good feel for your guides. And I let them know a lot about you. And then, after the day tour is complete, invite them down for a beer in the hotel and get to know them a lot better. And yeah, you can ask these questions. And these people are very well experienced with dealing with tourists and don't think about too much what you say, but don't directly insult the leaders. That's it. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because my point is, as long as you follow the rules, as long as you abide with the rules, then you're good to go in North Korea. As long as you're sensible enough, some of the things there are just common sense. Like you don't
Common sense.
disrespect the leaders. But the thing is, if you go to
Mm.
other countries, for example, even if you're innocent, even if you're abiding, even if you're following the rules, but then you go to this bar, then there's a potential robbery, there's potential theft or murder. But those things, you don't have to worry about those things in North Korea as long as you're
Yeah.
sensible enough in following the rules. So that's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's really
Petty crime doesn't
safe.
exist. Right.
Yeah, petty crime doesn't exist. And the only thing that you need to worry about, you don't even have to worry because it's like what I said, it's common sense. As long as you're sensible, it's
Right.
safe to visit North Korea. So, yeah, that's what I want to say for towards the people who are scared in
it's
visiting
very
North
it's very
Korea.
easy to visit there and have a good time. It is your holiday. You can enjoy your holiday in North Korea. I know that sounds weird to so many listeners who are tuned in, but there's a reason why this tourism industry in North Korea exists, and because people like you have gone and told your friends, and people have gone, was it scary? And you went, actually, it was interesting, and I found myself enjoying myself sometimes. So, or depending, depends who you go with.
Yeah, the only thing I was a bit scared though was when we went to this mausoleum. What they call that sun? What they call that mausoleum?
It's the sun, Palace of the Sun. Yeah.
Palace of the Sun, and we are required to bow to the body of the leaders, right? We were required to
Right.
bow, like as a
Yeah.
respect. And for me,
Yeah.
because I'm a Christian, so we're not really encouraged to do that. But I know
Right.
it's just for respect. But at the same time, as much as possible, we're not encouraged to do that because we're supposed to bow only to God or to Jesus, something like that. But then I
Right.
was I was a bit scared because the guards were there, so I just ended
Right.
up
Yeah. Yeah.
bowing. So my question is, what if I didn't bow? Do you think something will happen to me?
Well, that's why, like, before we go to the Kumsusan, because there's two sacred places in North Korea that you don't have to go to as tourists. People always think, like, I don't want to go to North Korea because I don't want to bow to their leaders. You can go to North Korea and you don't have to bow to leaders. We've dealt with so many different types of nationalities and religious backgrounds or people's opinions that are like, I don't want to do it, and it's fine. You don't have to
Okay,
do it.
okay,
Most
there you
people,
go.
like you did it because when in Rome, right?
Right.
But for example, if you don't want to bow, you just simply don't visit these areas. So we've dealt with tourists who are like, listen, I want to check out Kumsusan. I want to see what's on the inside, but I don't want to bow. But unfortunately, you can't go to the Kumsusan man. So we work out a separate itinerary according to their interests on what they would like to do. But if you do visit the Kumsusan, or the second location is the Mansure
Just a
Grand Monuments,
statue. Right.
the big statues. Yeah, you got to
Right.
bow there. Yeah, but you don't have to visit there. So I've arranged, like, for example, like families from Indonesia who are who are Islamic, and they're like, listen, we want to check it out. Our countries had a bit of a history with each other, but we don't want to bow. And it's like, cool, done. And the North Koreans are totally fine with it. Actually, what we have to do, the secret of what we do, is that every time we arrange a group tour to North Korea, we have to request to visit the mausoleum and the statues, because it's not a tourist place, and the North Koreans don't want to treat it as a tourist place. They don't want foreigners being there, and as you said, there's like a lot of regulations in these areas, and they don't want foreigners going there screwing it up for the locals. So yeah, that's one of the places where it's not my favorite part of the job, having to stand on the bus for about 30 minutes going through all these certain regulations on like what to do at these places. Don't sit down, don't run, don't chew gum, don't carry water, take your sunglasses off, take your hat off when you bow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh wow. And like I was talking about the New Year's tour in 2015. So we're about to go back to Beijing,
Mm.
and we were on the same train actually. And before the train was leaving Pyongyang, there was a news that one of the tourists was detained at the airport. And of course, we know the story is all over the news. It's Otto Warmbier, one of the
What?
tourists, and
Mm-hmm.
he was actually at the same tour with us, but of course a different company. I was with Corey Tours, and he was with your tour, Young Pioneers Tour, but exactly the same itinerary. And he even stayed at the Yanggakdo Hotel. So I was with him. I was with Otto Warmbier during the tour. When they relayed the news to us on the train, I first thought that okay, he was detained at the airport. Maybe they will just question him or something. It's not a big deal, you know. Maybe he just needs some questioning or something, and they will release him. But then when I got to Beijing, I opened the news. Wow, he was really detained. He wasn't able to fly, and then 2 years have passed, and then he passed away. So
Mm.
can you tell us, since he went with your tour? Can you tell us briefly what happened to Otto?
First of all, I just want to say, like, my heart and my thoughts are constantly with Fred and Cindy, his parents, about this, because it's a horrible situation when it happened. Nobody wanted this to ever happen, but it is a firm reminder to, like, there are certain ways of how you should be as a tourist when you are traveling in a country. So when the situation took place, we haven't had any issues with any of our tourists before. We had operated as a company for 8 years, and this was the first time one of our tourists had been detained. And for reasons at the time we had no idea about, we weren't aware of any of this because it was the New Year's tour. We had, I think we had over 80 people for the entire group. So we had 4 separate groups of 20 people in each group, and there was a lot happening. It was a 5-day tour. It was very packed, long days, short nights, but for some people, long nights. It's New Year's. They'll stay up. They'll go to karaoke at the hotel. They'll drink. They're on holidays. They want to enjoy themselves. So when this happened, yeah, it was an absolute shock. We kept one of our staff in Pyongyang to find out what's going on, like what's the situation. And the North Koreans weren't open about it at the time. We started hearing some information that he's broken a local regulation, he's broken a law. Well, what law? And it's like, we're getting that information now. So we got in contact with the parents, we got in contact with the US State Department, we got into contact with the Swedish embassy, who look after American citizens in Pyongyang, because the US don't have an embassy in Pyongyang. So we just related as much information as we could. We got as much information from our local guides as we could, and we were given very, very little information. But news got out that YPT took Otto Warmbier, so we had a lot of we were headlining the news. We were in the news, like the front page. For
man.
I like to think a week, but it felt like a month. So it was a pretty insane experience for us to be at the forefront of this entire situation when we were given zero information on anything. So we just wanted to let everyone know what we knew. We wanted to give the respects to the family, Otto's parents, who wanted nothing to be, they just wanted us to, respect their privacy, which we understand. And but unfortunately we were left in the dark for a long time. So we were reading the news as everyone else was reading the news later as it progressed, when he was released in a coma. And I think it was that he passed away 6 days later in the US. So they were able to, retrieve him from North Korea, bring him back home. And there's a DW documentary actually on this. So if you go to YouTube and type in Otto Warmbier DW, they did a very in-depth interview with the doctor that was, who was flown over to retrieve Otto, everyone else who was involved, and I think some medical staff as well back in Virginia were also were talked about. So it was like a very, even I learned from that interview, because we were not told too much information from the outside parties, but in North Korea, they were very sad to hear about all this. They didn't want any of this to happen. They were confused and sad why you would break a rule like that in North Korea. So I gathered that he went to staff only rooms in the Yonggakdo Hotel, so the same hotel where you were staying at, and he reached some out of access areas that tourists aren't meant to go there. And I saw the CCTV footage of him taking down that slogan, which apparently mentions Kim Jong-il's name. So some obvious things to avoid when in a country, which is just unfortunate, and it's really sad. And it was hard, absolutely painful to deal with through the time. And it's been, I think, 5 years now. And, it's just an extreme harsh reminder of how to behave when you're overseas, even when there's rules that you don't agree with, or you have different opinions. Then if you feel that, don't go to these countries. And there are so many other countries out there that have these special rules. Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, Brunei, there's Singapore. Don't chew gum in Singapore. No, I love Singaporeans. Hi, Singaporeans. But every country has in Cambodia, you can't have you can go to jail for having what are they called, e-cigarettes, or shishas, totally banned here, or sex toys. You can get in serious trouble for this kind of stuff. But these are the rules and regulations that we bring ourselves up to date with, and to make ourselves, as a good person, as a person who represents where we come from, and and to respect to our host. Right.
Wow, that's a really good lesson. And what was your initial reaction when you were on the train and we received the news? What was your initial reaction?
Because I heard the news the moment I boarded the train. So I got told hey, this is happening. And I had 30 odd people on the train with me. And it was wow. Well, I got to go, because I got to make sure these guys, there's no problem on the train out, because now it's what's going on? Was there somebody else involved who's in my group that we're unaware of now? So we were on the train out. But I was with Gareth, who's my business partner. So he's the one who stayed and tried to get as much information as he could, try to get involved in as anything as he could, as well, to see if he could help the situation, explain the situation. But it was just one of those situations where we were totally left in the dark. Everyone on my train, that's where you saw me on the train out. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of questions going through my head, but my immediate response was to make sure everyone on the train in my group felt comfortable. Nobody was nervous. Everyone was, a good way to end the tour. And and when we came back to China, It's just
It's on Yahoo headline when I was back in China.
oh, dude, it was every headline, man, and like being contacted by every single like news agency around the world, even news agencies who reached out to me speaking their local language, being like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking," and yeah, we released a company statement and just being guys, we're respecting the privacy of the family. This is our statement. You know, we can't give too much else, and you know, yeah, that's how it all developed and rolled out.
Yeah, and one of my friends, one of our listeners, sent me a question via Instagram as well when she knew that you're going to be on the podcast. Her name is Summer Mayweather.
Like
She's
Summer Mayweather.
Yeah, Summer Mayweather. She's asking,
It's a
what
nice name.
support did your company provide when the whole thing happened? How did that change the way you handle your tours and the people joining them?
It's a good question. So we, as I said, like as we got out, the only limited support we could give was to just be in touch with all the relevant agencies that were needed to be involved in this situation. And we weren't involved in that for much longer. They, you know, this is like the US working with the Sweden, working with the North Koreans. So we were the travel agency that took him. But as soon as it came to breaking the law, it was just completely out of our hands. But we did everything we could from our side to stay in touch with the family, to give them any information that we had received from our end, which wasn't much, but that's what we did. And what did we change for future tours? We started to include, listen, guys, stay out of staff-only areas and hotels. Like, unfortunately, we thought that was obvious enough, but yes, please do not go to restricted areas when you're in the hotel, because when you do visit North Korea, you are meant to stick together as a group. Or if you do a private tour, you got to be with your local guides. You know, throughout the day, you can't wander off by yourself. You can never be alone by yourself in North Korea unless you're at the hotel.
Yes,
So
exactly.
at the hotel, you can help yourself at the restaurant, to the bar, to the Angarti, you got the bowling,
The
ping pong,
bowling
the
alley.
billiards. Yeah, you got all that. So help yourself to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, we had to tell future tourists, yeah, if it says staff only, please do not break into these areas.
Right. I remember
much
that.
like any other hotels in the world.
Yeah, I remember that night. That was after the New Year's party, and almost everyone was drunk. I remember my roommate at the time. He was so drunk, and the bus almost left without him because he got lost from the boat going to the bus. That was a New Year's Eve party, and I remember during that night, like it was like kind of like a free night, right? The next day is we were about to leave. The next day is like the day to leave Pyongyang, and that night was the last night in North Korea, so we were kind of like free to do whatever we want. Some went to the karaoke, the bowling alley. Like what you've said, we were briefed as well before going to North Korea that never visit the fifth floor because that is prohibited to go there.
So the fifth floor is that's the most infamous mystery floor in the hotel. So we've always forever said, guys, don't go to the fifth floor. We've always stressed as being a travel company in North Korea, don't go to the fifth floor, because it sucks for everyone. It sucks for my guides and my North Korean guides who are in charge, because we get told off, and it gets to some points where even tourists have to write an apology letter to be like, listen, I'm sorry I went to the fifth floor. Yes, I was told not to go here. I'm sorry for breaking the rules kind of thing. But this incident that happened in Yeonggakdo, it wasn't the fifth floor. It was another section of the hotel, which was
okay. I didn't know that.
So that's another misconception. So no,
right.
it wasn't the fifth floor.
Okay.
It wasn't the fifth floor. So the fifth floor is I can't tell you what. I've never been there.
I saw some videos on YouTube. Like some people even took videos.
There's videos of it. You can look it up and see what it looks like. Just like every room, every building in North Korea will have like a revolutionary room where the room is dedicated to like whatever the efforts of the North Korean government were to their involvement with the building or the factory or the school or whatever it is.
Right.
And they'll have like some slogans and some, just like Juche sort of slogans. That's the ideology that runs the country. You'll have that. So that's what it looks like to me. But no, he went to a completely different area, which was very much out of bounds. And yeah, so we started telling people, guys, please avoid staff-only areas. But after the Otto Warmbier incident, nobody goes to the fifth floor. ever. We haven't had a single incident of anyone misbehaving in hotels, which has made our jobs a lot easier. But also a problem that happened that we had quite often as well is that you're not allowed to leave the hotel once the day tour is finished. So once we're back in the hotel, after you've
Hmm.
had dinner and you've had a big night out, you got to stay at the hotel. You don't walk out of the hotel. I've had so many tourists who have snuck out at like 2 o'clock in the morning
Oh,
when the
really?
door guys are
Whoa.
sleeping. Yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
they're
So
crazy.
they've walked down streets. They've
Oh,
clearly broken rules that are very much a strong regulation. It's a law in North Korea. Don't do it, which is why we say don't do it. And yeah, it's always been a hassle to deal with that. You talk to the person, you're like, why'd you do it? And they're like, I just wanted to check it out. And it's like, well, great. Now, now I'm in trouble and now my guides are in trouble. And you have to explain that this was explained to you, but you willingly broke it. And it's unpleasant because then people, they dampen their own experience in North Korea because now the group doesn't trust them anymore. So they kind of outs themselves anymore. So when you sit down for lunch, nobody wants to sit with you now. You're the freak at the cafeteria during the school break because nobody can trust you now. Like,
yeah,
great, you've
I can
made Miss Kim
imagine.
and Miss Puck upset. Now they can't really enjoy their times with us when we were having a good time with them. So, but since the Otto Warmbier incident, nobody left
No,
hotels anymore.
yeah. Oh
Like
wow.
people, it has made our job a lot easier. And finally, people have gotten tourists have gotten into the head like, yeah, you're not invincible. Even though you're not from the US, you're any other nationality, you're not invincible. These regulations still stick to you. But it's just unfortunate that the North Koreans do have some beef against US. So when a US person breaks a regulation, yeah, they'll
It's a
be
different
held
story.
to it.
Yeah.
It's a different story, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just listen to your instructions from your guides because you're in North Korea. You're not in the Philippines, where I would prefer to be actually.
Wow, this is so. That's a reminder as well to all of us who plan to travel, who love traveling, not just in North Korea but in any other countries, to always abide with the rules.
Yeah,
So,
it's
in
cool. It's cool to be a smart traveler, and it's cool to know the do's and don'ts, so you can help others who are clueless. Even when you're traveling by yourself, you can be like, "Hey, man, like, don't do that. You know,
right,
don't smoke that weed in Singapore." Like it's
don't.
just things that people. I know I've said two things about Singapore now: chewing gum and weed. Like, but maybe, sorry guys, you have a beautiful country, beautiful city.
Oh wow. So when I was in North Korea, for me, I was there for only 5 days, and I realized it was like a breath of fresh air, because, like what I've said, there was no internet, so no bombardment of information, and there are no advertisements, no billboards. So it was like kind of like a breath of fresh air for me. And I saw a lot of things that they do differently. Some I want to improve, and some I think are, oh wow, we should do this as well. So how about you, as sort of this last question for this podcast? Before we end, what do you think? What are the things that we can learn from North Korea, or what?
Engagement. Um, we can't ignore an entire country, an entire population when we don't agree with the government. There's a lot of governments out there that are, that we don't agree with them from our point of view. It depends where you come from, but I feel like we shouldn't ignore a country. We should still engage them, engage the people, learn as much as we can from them, and teach them as much as we can. Uh, and I think tourism is the first step with doing so when it comes to a country, bringing cultures together, discussing things, openly discussing things, because we both sides will read the news, and the news are controlled by the people who want us to read certain aspects on certain things that happen around the world. And the best way to learn about these kind of things is to ask someone who's from that country for their opinion and to teach them to be better. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rowan, for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you, especially about this country, North Korea, where not a lot of people visit, and probably is the last country to open after the pandemic. Thanks so much, mate.
Thank you, mate. If anyone has any questions about North Korea who've listened to this, they can feel free to reach out to me. I'm everywhere. I'm happy to answer questions because North Korea is just one of those places that,
So how can they contact you on Instagram? Because Instagram is like the easiest way to contact people nowadays. So what's your
I
Instagram
think so,
account?
yeah. Rowan.travel. That's my Instagram. So feel free to hit me up there.
All
Or
right.
Facebook or the youngpioneertours.com. Yeah, email us there. I'm the our team is down to a very small crew because of COVID, but I'm online every day, almost every hour if I'm not sleeping. So constantly, I'm here for you guys.
Oh wow. Okay, great. I'm gonna put the link as well in the description box, the link of your Instagram account. Thank you once again, and yeah, hopefully I can go back to North Korea once this is all over. To be honest, I really want to go back and explore more, probably
Back with
outside
us,
of
mate.
Pyongyang.
You'll have
Yeah,
you'll have more fun, and you know it, and you
and
saw that.
and it's cheaper.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know your tour company before. I look at it. Oh, it's a lot cheaper. So yeah, for sure.
Cool,
Wow.
man. Thanks for
Okay.
having me. All right, man.
Thank you, man. So
Enjoy.
yeah,
Take care
before
in the
we
Philippines. I hope everything's okay with your family and your friends, and yeah, I'll see you on the road.
before we leave, I'm gonna leave you with this quote, and for our listeners as well, this travel quote. Perhaps travel cannot prevent bigotry, but by demonstrating that all peoples cry, laugh, eat, worry, and die, it can introduce the idea that if we try and understand each other, we may even become friends. From Maya Angelou. This has been your host, Regin. Thank you once again for tuning in. Till the next episode.